What if I told you the very thing holding you back isn't the world, but you? Those words echoed in Daniel's mind like a thunderclap. He lived in the heart of San Francisco, a city where people seemed to chase dreams every single day. Entrepreneurs were launching startups from coffee shops, artists were sketching by the bay, runners were training across the Golden Gate Bridge. Energy and ambition buzzed everywhere around him. Yet, despite being in such a driven city, Daniel felt stuck in place. It wasn't that he didn't have ambition. He had notebooks full of goals and ideas, business plans, fitness challenges, even personal projects he swore he'd finish. But those pages sat unfinished, collecting dust. Every time he started something, he relied on bursts of motivation to carry him forward. A YouTube video would get him excited. A quote on Instagram would light him up. For a few days, he'd feel unstoppable. But then reality set in. The excitement faded, obstacles appeared, and suddenly that fire burned out. Motivation had given him a spark, but sparks don't last long without fuel. Soon, he'd fall back into his old cycle, procrastinating, doubting himself, and quitting halfway. One morning, Daniel sat by the window of his small San Francisco apartment, looking out at the city skyline. The fog rolled in from the bay, covering the streets like a reminder of his own haze. He whispered to himself, "Why do I keep failing? Why can't I follow through?" And then it hit him. Motivation wasn't the problem, it was the way he was relying on it. He realized motivation was like caffeine, it gave him a temporary rush, but it always wore off. What he really needed wasn't more hype or inspiration, it was discipline. That realization stung. Discipline didn't sound exciting. Discipline meant waking up early even when you're tired. Discipline meant doing the hard things when nobody was watching. Discipline meant showing up on the days when you felt no motivation at all. But deep down, Daniel knew it was true. Looking back at all his failures, the missing piece wasn't motivation, it was consistency. It was discipline. And if he wanted to change his life in San Francisco, the city where dreams either flourish or fade, he would have to stop chasing motivation and start building discipline. That was his wake-up call. Daniel knew his life couldn't change unless he confronted the uncomfortable truth: his weaknesses weren't going away by themselves. Avoiding them had only made them stronger. Sitting at his desk, with the sounds of San Francisco's bustling streets outside, he opened a blank notebook and wrote at the top in bold letters, "My weaknesses." For the first time, he forced himself to list them without sugarcoating. Procrastination, he always delayed what mattered most. Inconsistency, he started strong but rarely finished. Self-doubt, he questioned every step, fearing judgment from others. Fear of failure, he quit early to avoid embarrassment. Looking at the page felt like staring into a mirror. It was uncomfortable, almost painful. For years, he had tried to fight these weaknesses with bursts of motivation, new planners, gym memberships, motivational videos, and endless to-do lists. But none of it lasted. The truth was harsh. Motivation gave him excitement, but it never gave him progress. That's when he remembered something Mel Robbins once said: "You don't need motivation, you need action." Motivation is emotional. It depends on how you feel. And feelings change like the San Francisco weather, sunny one moment, foggy the next. Discipline, on the other hand, is logical. It doesn't ask how you feel, it just demands that you show up. To test this, Daniel decided to change his approach. Instead of waiting for motivation, he built rules around discipline. The first was simple: the 5-second rule. Anytime he felt hesitation, whether it was starting his work, going for a jog near the bay, or making a tough phone call, he would count backward: 5-4-3-2-1. Go. No excuses, no negotiations. The second was daily affirmations. Every morning, while brushing his teeth, he looked at himself in the mirror and repeated, "I am capable. I can improve. I will not wait for motivation, I will act. At first, it felt silly. But slowly, his brain began to accept it. The third was tracking progress. He carried a small journal and checked off daily habits: waking up on time, exercising, finishing a task, reading for 20 minutes. These weren't big wins, but they were consistent wins. Walking through the Mission District one afternoon, Daniel noticed something: the people around him weren't always inspired. The runner sweating on the sidewalk wasn't motivated every day, he was disciplined. The shop owner opening at 6 a.m. wasn't relying on motivation, she had discipline. The city itself seemed to whisper, don't chase motivation. Build discipline. That day, Daniel finally understood, facing your weaknesses is not about waiting until you feel ready. It's about acting, even when you don't. Change didn't happen overnight. Daniel quickly discovered that shifting from a life powered by motivation to one fueled by discipline was like learning to walk again. At first, he stumbled more than he stood. He would set his alarm for 6 a.m., determined to jog along the Embarcadero waterfront before work. On the first day, he jumped out of bed energized. On the second day, he snoozed twice before dragging himself out reluctantly. By the third day, the foggy San Francisco morning tempted him to stay under the blanket. Motivation would have quit right there. But discipline demanded something different: do it anyway. So, he went. Not fast, not far, but he showed up. And that small act of showing up, even when he didn't want to, started rewiring his brain. The old Daniel relied on feelings. The new Daniel was teaching himself to rely on actions. Still, the battle wasn't easy. He faced setbacks constantly. Deadlines at his job drained him. Friends invited him out late at night, throwing off his schedule. Some mornings, fear and doubt whispered, why bother? You'll fail again. But Daniel remembered what he wrote in his journal: motivation is a spark. Discipline is the fire. He wasn't chasing sparks anymore, he was building a steady flame. To stay on track, he built accountability. Every Sunday, he met his friend Marco at a cafe near the Golden Gate Bridge. They both shared their weekly goals and reported on progress. Knowing someone else would check in forced Daniel to keep his promises. This system turned inconsistency into steady rhythm. He also broke big goals into small, daily steps. Instead of saying, I'll write a book, he told himself, I'll write 300 words today. Instead of, I'll get fit, he committed to 20 minutes of exercise today. The smaller the step, the easier it was to do it without waiting for motivation. Day by day, discipline began replacing his weaknesses. Procrastination shrank because he acted within 5 seconds. Inconsistency faded because habits stacked on each other. Self-doubt softened because every small win built confidence. Walking through San Francisco now felt different. When he saw tech founders in co-working spaces, he no longer felt jealous, he felt aligned. When he saw runners crossing the Golden Gate, he wasn't comparing, he was training too. The city that once overwhelmed him was now fueling his growth. For the first time, Daniel realized he was transforming. Motivation hadn't done it, discipline had. Months passed, and Daniel's discipline began to shape not just his habits but his identity. He was no longer the man who depended on random waves of motivation. He was becoming the kind of person who acted regardless of how he felt. This shift was powerful. Each morning he woke up at 6 a.m. and jogged along the San Francisco Bay Trail, whether the sky was sunny or covered in fog. He no longer negotiated with himself, he simply did it. The discipline of showing up consistently built momentum. What once felt like a struggle became part of who he was. The results were undeniable. His fitness improved, his work performance sharpened, and his creativity surged. The book he once dreamed of writing was no longer just an idea, he was steadily drafting chapters. Projects at his job, which he used to delay out of fear, were now handled with confidence. Daniel wasn't just changing his routine, he was changing his story. The most surprising lesson? By committing to discipline, Daniel discovered that motivation came back naturally. But this time, it wasn't shallow hype. It was deep, earned motivation, the kind that grows from progress. Each time he stuck to his habits, he inspired himself. Each small win created a spark, and discipline kept that spark alive. He realized something profound. Motivation is emotional, it comes and goes. Discipline is structural, it builds who you are. Together, they create unstoppable growth. San Francisco, once intimidating, now felt like his arena. The city's constant motion matched his own. He admired the entrepreneurs who worked late nights, but instead of wishing he could be like them, he knew he was living with the same fire. He admired the athletes running up steep city hills, but instead of feeling weak in comparison, he joined their rhythm. One night, Daniel stood at the edge of the Golden Gate Bridge, the wind strong against his face. The bridge lights glowed, stretching endlessly, just like the path he was walking in life. He thought back to who he was months ago, stuck, inconsistent, waiting for motivation to magically fix him. Now, he knew better. His weaknesses hadn't disappeared, they had been reshaped. Procrastination had turned into action. Inconsistency had turned into routine. Self-doubt had turned into confidence. The transformation didn't happen because he waited for the perfect mood. It happened because he built discipline brick by brick. That night, staring at the glowing city, Daniel realized, this was just the beginning of his true potential. Daniel's story isn't just about one man in San Francisco. It's about all of us. Every person watching this has dreams, goals, and ambitions. But here's the truth, most people stay stuck, not because they lack talent, but because they depend only on motivation. Motivation is exciting, but it's unreliable. It feels amazing when it's there, but it disappears when life gets tough. Think about it, how many times have you felt motivated to start a workout, a business idea, or a new habit, only to quit after a week? That's not because you're weak. It's because motivation was never meant to carry you the whole way. The secret Daniel discovered, and the one you need to hear, is this: discipline is greater than motivation. Motivation gets you started, but discipline keeps you going. Motivation fades, but discipline builds habits. Motivation inspires you for a moment, but discipline transforms you for life. So, how do you build it? Start small. Like Daniel, write down your weaknesses honestly. Procrastination, fear, inconsistency, self-doubt. Don't hide from them. Face them. Then create simple, non-negotiable actions. Use the 5-second rule, count down from 5 and move before excuses creep in. Build tiny habits, 10 push-ups, 10 minutes of reading, 1 page of writing. Small wins add up. Create accountability, share your goals with a friend, a mentor, or even write them publicly. And most importantly, stop waiting to feel like it. The people who succeed in life are not the ones who always feel motivated, they are the ones who act even when they don't. That's discipline. Imagine your life 1 year from now if you lived with discipline. How much fitter, smarter, and more confident could you become? Imagine the projects you could finish, the skills you could master, the opportunities you could unlock. Look at Daniel's journey. He went from a man stuck in self-doubt to someone unlocking his true potential, all because he shifted from chasing motivation to building discipline. If he can do it in the busy streets of San Francisco, surrounded by distractions and challenges, then so can you, right where you are. So here's the challenge: stop waiting for motivation to show up. It won't. Instead, build discipline. Take one small action today. And then another tomorrow. And soon, you'll realize that you don't need to wait for potential, it was inside you all along, waiting for discipline to bring it out. This is your wake-up call. Don't just get inspired, get disciplined. Your true potential is waiting.